What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon. This is Floyd Lamb Park. Let's fish that. Alright, ladies and gents, made our way out to Mulberry Lake. That's the most bottom lake here at Floyd Lamb Park. Alright, so it is spring. It can be quite difficult to find fish during spring. Some days you have colder weather and something like the trout, they're still biting good. Other days it's a bit warmer and the trout are not biting that good. You have to try for some different species. We're not going to be doing some trout fishing out there today. Instead, we're going to try and focus on some different type of fishing. Normally during spring, most of the fish are preparing for their spawn seasons. Of course, the trout aren't. They're finished with their spawn. But all the other fish, something like the carp, bass, they're all heading up shallow to do their spawn. Now, something like carp, when they spawn, during the spawn itself, they won't go for any baits. But pre-spawn and post-spawn, they should be feeding rather well. So today we're going to see if we can get some carp, some pre-spawn carp maybe, and we're going to try for some bass, see if there's any bass willing to bite yet, or whether the waters are still too cold. Right, but that's the plan for today, so let's have a look at what we're doing out there. Alright, ladies and gents, we're out here today, and there's a big party, something like the After School All-Stars. They have a party planned for today, so we'll see if we can stay in this spot, or whether it's going to be too noisy. But for the time being, we have one rod out there. This is my carp setup. We're already getting some hits on the bobber there, so I'm thinking maybe we have some terrapins messing with our baits, but we're going to leave that soaking, see if maybe we get some of the carp to go for our baits. Now, that's the one rod, and we're going to have a second rod out there with carp baits as well, with the idea being that we can see whether we can get some pre-spawn carp, maybe feed some of the fish. And we're just using a simple pack bait. This is just some oats, jello and corn made into a pack bait, and then we have some corn and a little floaty just to lift it out of the muck. We're going to cast one out on this side, one out on that side. We see if we get any carp going for our little carp baits. So I regularly use little strike indicators on the line, that way I can see whether something is messing with my baits. And I have one to put on the second rod, but rather than doing that, I want to show you guys a little shortcut, something you can do that's kind of similar without actually having one of these little cork little line indicators. And that is simply using some of the pack bait. You make a little bowl with your pack bait, and we're just going to put that on the line. And there we go. Using some of the pack bait, we're using that as a line indicator. If that thing drops, we know the fish is swimming towards us, otherwise it will pull out towards the water, it will set off the alarm. But that's our carp setups rigged out there, waiting to see if we get some carp. Okay, so in the state of Nevada, each licensed angler is allowed to use 2 rods. Now, we got 2 carp rods out there. I'm saying we, because the wife is over there trying for some bass. We are 2 licensed anglers, so we have 2 carp rods, and we can both use a second rod to try and find some bass. Now, she's already casting around some lures, and I'm about to do the same, and that is why we have these rods with alarms. If we do get a fish on them, the alarm will scream. The carp setup, that has a bait runner that would let line out, whereas on the second rod, you have to loosen the drag so that the line can move freely out. If you do get any hits from carp, they need to be able to take line, giving you a chance to come from wherever you are fishing for whatever other fish to make it to your rods, rather than just simply ripping your rods into the water. But that does give me the opportunity to use a second rod and try and find some bass. Now, one thing I've never actually caught fish on is little worm imitations, little dingers or sankos. Now, I do also want to point out that on this channel, I regularly try and explain to people that you do not need the best gear to actually catch fish, nor do you need the best, most expensive lures. But it is important for me to point out that in this case, I do believe that the sankos, they actually have a different look and feel to them. The way they're fluttering in the water is a lot different from the little yum dingers. point I'm trying to make is that the brands aren't necessarily as important, but a lot of the brands make their products based on research, whereas some other just try and imitate them, and sometimes you do get a bit of an edge using the preferred thing. For that reason, I'm going to start off with these, throw them out there, see if we get any bass. Now, I do know that in these ponds we have lots of snags in the water, so I'm rather going to go for a weightless setup, and we're just going to wacky rig a little Sanko. Now, when rigging these, the general idea is you want to be close to the middle. You want to get a little fluttering action as this thing is sinking through the water. And I prefer to go straight through the little body, having your hook at a 90-degree angle rather than inline. It's at an angle. That just helps with the hook set ratio. And all I'm going to do is just going to push it straight through the middle. And there we go, little wacky rigged worm. Going to throw that into the water, and let's see if we get any fish on that. If not, we're going to swap to different lures. Going to soak the baits. If we don't get any fish out here, we maybe need to move to one of the other ponds. Okay, so how am I fishing this little Sanko? Well, I'm not seeing any fish up shallow, and the shallow waters, meaning these fish will be in deeper. They might be more lethargic. That's why I like throwing this at them. We're going to be fishing very slowly with this. We have a little stump there in the water. All I'm doing, I'm pitching towards structure and or trees, deep holes, anywhere I think the fish might be. We wait for it to sink down. Just tighten up the slack a bit, wait for it to sink down. And then I just lift it, wait for it to sink back down again, lift, sink down. Now, how do I know whether I have a fish on there or not? If I suddenly see my line moving away, darting into one direction, that means the fish has grabbed it and I need to set the hook. Or if the line isn't too slack, you might feel some tugging and you just set the hook. And the general idea, this little worm is sinking slowly through the water. You lift it up again and it starts sinking again. Lift and it sinks. You repeat this all throughout your retrieve, bringing it up, letting it sink back down, bring it up, letting it sink back down. And of course, the general idea is not sticking in one spot, moving around. You're looking for that one fish that's willing to bite on this little thing. So moving around quite a lot. That is why it's important to have the alarms on our carp rods. We cannot go too far away from them, but we do have some freedom to move around, look for some good spots. Alright guys, we just had the alarm go off and the wife is on a fish. Quickly just want to get the net ready. Not yet seen the fish, but we've waited something like 2.5 hours. We've been getting some hits on both of our rods, but nothing major. This is the first proper take we got. Decent size. Again, Carp koi cross. You can see that from the colors on him. This particular pond has a few koi in it. That's why you get these crossbreeds. Let's see if we can get him in the net. And unfortunately he broke loose. Not going to be able to get our little feeder back from that fish, but that will rust out. So at least we got a fish. He was too big to get in the net, so there was no good way of getting him out without that line snapping. So right now you can see a little bobber moving. We got something messing with the baits, but we're going to leave that unless this alarm is screaming. We're not going to mess with that. We want to make sure this fish gets the hook. Even it may even not be a fish at all messing with the baits. So unless that thing is screaming, we're not going to be messing with it. This is why it's good to have a little line indicator so you can see when something's happening. If we didn't have that little indicator, we wouldn't even know anything's busy messing with our baits. There we go, alarm screaming. It's funny, this fish acting exactly like the previous one. They swim from where we have the baits directly to the shade underneath this tree. But with the previous fish in this setup, we brought it in way too quick. The fish wasn't tired yet. So with this one, we're just going to take our time, play around with him. Ah, he popped off as well. Probably didn't tie the hook strong enough. Lost another little feeder, so no way we're going to get any fish today. We don't have any method feeders left.
Hi, my name is Cash. I've been watching Finally Fishing for probably like a year now, and I would just like to shout out to Vernon, the host, and also on my Instagram, Cash Strawberry 5, and off to.
I'm Talon Travis. I'd like to shout out my Instagram, Talon_Travis30 and Shreddy Life.
I would like to shout out my Instagram, Tyler.Stein7.
Thank you.
All right,
It was
good
nice
luck.
meeting you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Alright, ladies and gents, we spent a couple hours out here and we only got those 2 hits, and due to user error we lost those 2 fish, so no fish in this video. Unfortunately, we got skunked. Alright, so even though we didn't get that many fish out there today, at least we had fun, and that's a big thing. Lots of people around, had a good time, spent some good time with people out there. I especially need to give a big thanks to Ian. He spent some time out here with me. He doesn't want to be in the video, but he did spend some time with us, so thanks for that, Ian. And that's the big thing. Yes, the fishing can be rather tricky this time of year. It all depends on what type of fish are biting, whether it's a cold water fish or the warmer water fish, whether it's fish on beds or anything like that. It all depends on the specific day, and you have to jump between it all to see what fish you can get out there. Now, seeing how we got those 2 hits in all of this time, that means these fish are still pretty much in a winter pattern. It's not actively feeding yet. They are very slow feeding. That makes me think the water is still rather too cold. And you can see that with the things like the bass as well. Threw quite a lot of bass lures, didn't get any hits, not seeing them up on beds. I think they're still in the deep water. It's still a bit too cold for them, but we are getting into the time where that can change any day. And on that note, guys, I think that's where we're going to end this video. Thank you for watching, following us on this trip. Please do give us a little thumbs up for at least trying to land some fish out there. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, hitting the big red subscribe button. Feel free to ask any questions down below in the comments. Alright, thank you for watching. Like always, see you next time.